Welcome back, and again I am Kyla Jeter, the Elementary Teaching and Learning Technology Specialist for Spartanburg School District 3. And this is part 2 of my ClassFlow Bootcamp lesson about accessing resources from the ClassFlow Marketplace and using the polling features available in ClassFlow. In this part of the lesson, we will be focusing on using the polling features available in ClassFlow. In part 1 of this lesson, I already downloaded a ready-made resource from the Marketplace area, and that resource was downloaded into my Resources and Marketplace folder. So now we're ready to deliver this lesson. But anyway, so now we're going to go to deliver this lesson. So you click the blue Deliver button, and all of your classes should show up here. Now your classes, if you are a regular classroom teacher, should already be auto-populated from PowerSchool. And since I am not a regular classroom teacher, I do not have PowerSchool classes. So when I deliver, I have to deliver to my ad hoc session, and that means that that's not a real class. I don't have a class, and that data is not stored. So as a regular classroom teacher, you will get the ad hoc session option, but you should never deliver to your ad hoc class. You should deliver to your real section that's listed here from PowerSchool. But I am going to select ad hoc session. And it takes a minute, but it's loading my cards for my lesson, and I am now presenting this lesson to my students. So this is what they would see up on the big active panel or Promethean board that's in your room. So now that my lesson is completely loaded, I want you to be able to see what it looks like from the teacher's point of view and what it looks like from the student's point of view. So I'm just going to minimize my screen and snap it to this half. I'll make that a little bit longer there. And as you can see over here in a separate browser, I have logged on as a sample student, and I've just named my student Student 1. Now as a regular classroom teacher, I wouldn't suggest doing this because you would just confuse yourself trying to log in as a student. As a regular classroom teacher, you won't get to see what it looks like on the student screen until you deliver the lesson and you look on your student screen and see what is displayed. But I am logged in as a student, student number 1, and as you can see, since I haven't sent student number 1 any of my lesson cards from over here on the teacher side, they get this pretty landscape background. And this background will remain until I send them a card or a polling question. Now let's take a look at the different polling features that are available in ClassFlow. So as you can see, I'm on my first card, and it just says Magnets Made to Attract. Now let's say I want to send this card out to my students. I would press the polling button that's over here on the teacher's right side of the screen, and it says Start Poll. And when I click that icon, I get several choices. I'm going to send this card out as a word seed poll. So this is the first polling option we're going to look at, is word seed. So as you can see over here on the student side, the student gets my main card and they can enter a response here. So let's say I'm conducting this as a KWO exercise, and I tell them I want them to tell me everything they know about magnets. So they can type in just one word answers. Magnets can attract. I'm going to submit. And then once that answer is submitted, they can delete and submit again. Magnets can repel, is what I would say. I know that magnets attract things that are made of iron. I'm going to submit that. All right, and students could go on and on just entering everything that they know about magnets. So on the teacher side, if I look up here, it'll let me know when all my students have responded. So I only have one student logged into my class, so that student has responded. I get the message that all students have responded. So as on the teacher side, you stop the poll, and it'll take a minute, and then the student will get this note that says the poll has ended, and then they will get the pretty landscape scene again. So now there's a new icon that pops up on my teacher side, and I see that it is a graphing icon. So if I click that, it lets me see the results from that poll I just sent out. So it was a word seed poll. If I look here, I see all of the students' responses listed right here. And so I see what every student said: attract, repel, iron. So if 3 students had said iron, I would have a number 3 beside that to indicate that it was said 3 times. If a student happens to put something up here that is inappropriate, you get these little X's beside each response, and you can quickly remove it from the screen and it won't show up. Alright, so now to go back to my main teacher presenter mode and back to my lesson, I'm going to click the graphing icon once again. And that loads my lesson back up. Now on the teacher side, I'm going to continue to deliver my lesson. I'm going to go on to card 2 and talk about the information that's listed there. I'm going to go on to card 3 and talk about the information that's listed there. And now I'm going to go on to card 4. And here is where we're going to look at our next polling option. Alright, so I want to send this card to my kids as a poll. So I'm going to click the polling icon. It says Start Poll. And this time I'm going to send this poll out as a creative poll. And the creative poll will allow students to manipulate the things on the screen and resend the card to me. So now over here on the student side, this is what I see, and I have my pointer tool selected, and the question is, magnets attract things made of iron. What will a magnet attract? So I can pull these words to the different sides of the screen where they belong. And I can keep going. I'm going to stop here. But when I'm done, I'm going to submit, and the card goes to my teacher. So you see over here on the teacher side, it says all my students have responded. So I can stop the poll. And with this polling feature, with the creative polling feature, students are only allowed to submit once. So with WordSeed, they can submit multiple answers. With creative, they can only submit once. But I'm going to click the icon to look at my poll responses. And if you see here, this is a list of all the polls I've conducted during this lesson. So the last one was a creative poll. I'm going to select it. And this is what I see. And I would have a card here for every student in my class located down here along the bottom. And I can see what each student, I could click on the cards and see how each student answered. And then if I want to see names, I can click Show Names, and the names will show up. As you can see, I named this student Student 1, so that shows up there. So now that on the teacher side I've gone through and viewed all student responses, and you don't have to view them automatically. The software does save, and you can go back later after the lesson and review, but I like that you can give up-to-date feedback right as the students respond. Alright, so I'm going to click the graphing icon to go back to my lesson in presenter mode. And I can go on to my next card, which has a video on, and we're not going to watch. Go to my next card in my lesson, talking about how North and South poles attract. And now I am here on lesson card number 7, and sometimes it takes a minute to load. And here I could send this out again as a creative poll, which I'm not going to do because you've already looked at that feature. And the students could drag which set of magnets will attract and repel. So let's go on to the next lesson card. And again to the next. And I'm just going to skip on down here to 11. And here I have a question on this card, and it says, magnets found in nature are called. So I want to send this out to my students using another polling feature. So if you click Start Poll, and we're going to send this out as a multiple choice polling question because it is a multiple choice question. So I hit multiple, and then I have the choice of choosing how many choices or how many options the students have. So I have 3 choices listed here, so I'm going to put A, B, and C are the student options. Click Start Poll, And then on the student side, you see they receive the card with the question, and then they receive the multiple choice options. So magnets found in nature are called the lodestones, and I'm going to submit that as the student. So over here on the teacher side, I see all have responded. I'm going to stop the poll, and then I'm going to click the graphing icon to look at my results. That was the multiple choice polling question. And I see I get student 1 and their response and what time they responded. And if I had more students logged into this class, it would just create a list right here. And again, I can do show names, which I named my student, student 1, so that's not going to change. Hit the graphing icon to go back to my lesson screen. So now we're going to skip on down to card number 12, and we're going to look at our next polling option. And it says magnets can be made, true or false. It's a true or false question, so I'm going to click the start poll button, and I'm going to send this question out as a true or false question. On the student side, they get my card, and they also get the true and false options. So I'm going to make my selection on the student side and click submit. I see all have responded over here on my teacher side, so I'm going to stop the poll. I'm going to click the graphing icon, and I'm going to look. That was a true and false poll. I'm going to look at my student responses here, and I see student 1 responded true and the time they responded, and I'm going to click back to go to my lesson. So now we're going to skip on down to lesson card number 18 so we can look at our next polling feature. And this is actually a true or false question, but let's say on the fly I wanted to edit this question and I don't want my choices to be true or false, and I've just selected the pen tool, and I'm going to say my choices now are yes or no. I like the way you can write directly on the lesson card and change it up on the fly. So now I am going to start the poll, and I'm going to send this card to my students as a yes or no polling question. So now on the student side, I get my teacher's card with her edits. So putting a magnet on your TV is a good idea. Yes, no, and you get yes, no, or I don't know as your choices. So I'm going to click no, and I'm going to submit. On the teacher side, I see all my students have responded, so I can stop the poll. And we're not going to take a look at this one because it looks just like the true-false answer choices when you go look at the teacher data. But if you wanted to, you would click the graphing option and go there. So now let's skip to the end of this lesson, and we're going to look at the last few polling options. So let's say after I've done my last card in this lesson, I want to add a new card because I would like to send out a new type of question that I don't already have listed here. So I've added a new card to my lesson. I have my pen tool selected. I'm going to write my question on the card. So let's say I want the students to tell me one magnet fact, or one fact about magnets that they have learned during this lesson. So now I'm going to hit the start poll button, and I'm going to send this out as a text poll. And on the student side of the screen, they get my card and they can enter their response here. So I'm going to say North and South poles attract. That's one magnet fact I've learned, and I'm going to submit it to my teacher. Again, on the teacher side, I see all students have responded, so I can stop the poll. And since this is a new type of poll, I will let you see what it looks like when you click the graphing icon to look at the teacher data. And like I said, you can do this real time during the lesson. So that was a text poll that I sent to the students. So I'm going to click it. And if you can see, it has student 1 and it has their response and the time. And like I said, if I had multiple students, they would just be listed here. So I'm going to go back to my lesson. So now let's add another card on the fly to look at another polling option. So I just hit the plus button to add a new card. Sometimes it takes a minute. And here's my new card over here. I have my pen tool selected. So I'm going to say, tell me how well you learned about magnets during this lesson. So I'm going to say, on a scale, how well do you think you know about magnets now? So I'm going to click the start poll, and I'm going to send this out as a scale poll. And I have several options. It can be agree or disagree question. It can be a confidence, or it can be a generic 1 through 5 scale. So I'm going to tell them on a scale of 1 through 5, that's what I'm going to choose. I'm going to hit start poll. Tell me how well you learned about magnets today. So 1 would be you don't know that much about magnets. 5 would be you could teach it to someone else after this lesson. So I'm going to send in, make my choice and send in my response. On the teacher side now, I see that all students have responded, so I'm going to stop the poll and click the graphing icon to look at my data. And I'm going to click the Likert scale question. And if you can see, student 1, their response was a 5 on that confidence scale. I'm going to click the graphing option to go back to my lesson. So now we're going to add a new card to our lesson so we can go over the next polling feature. And this polling feature doesn't really apply to this lesson, but I want you to see how it works. So this is the number polling feature. So I'm going to say in my lesson, if you have 5 magnets plus 3 magnets, how many magnets do you have in all? So like I said, that doesn't really apply to this lesson, but I'm going to click start poll, and I'm going to send it to my students as a number poll. And on their side, they get my card and they get a box where they can enter a number response. So 5 plus 3, I'm going to click 8 and submit that. And on the teacher side, I see all have responded, so I can stop that poll. So again, if I wanted to look back at the data, I hit this graphing option here, or the graphing icon, and it will show me the data from that poll. Let's add in one more card. And I want you to see another version of using the creative poll. So I have this blank card, and I could have a question on it if I wanted to, but let's say I'm going to send this out to students as a creative poll. And I tell them to draw me a picture of a magnet and label the north and south poles. So I'm sending it to them as a creative poll. So over here on the student side, they have some tools to choose from as well. They could take a picture, they have the pen tool, they have the shape tool, they have the text tool. This is the math formula tool, and then they can click these curly Q arrows to reset their original page. I'm going to use the pen tool, and I'm going to draw a picture of my magnet on the student side. And I'm going to label one of my poles north, one of my poles south. Alright, and then I can label that. I can say this is the north pole. Please pardon my messy handwriting. And I'm going to say this is the south pole. And I've labeled it, and I'm going to submit it to my teacher. Now over here on the teacher side, I have one pending response because it has not logged my response yet. Let's give it a minute. And, well, let's go ahead and stop it and see what happens. So I stop the poll, and if I click on the graph icon, I should be able to see the data from that poll. Yes, creative poll was the last poll that I sent out. And over here, I see each student's card will be lined up down here at the bottom. So this is student 1's card, and this is the work that they submitted to me, the picture and the words that they submitted. And I could click show names, and their names will show up in the bottom corner of their card. So now I'm going to click the graph icon to go back to my lesson, and I say, okay kids, that's the end of this lesson. You click exit to go out of the lesson, and all of your poll data will be saved, and it will ask, do you want to save changes, because I added cards in, and I am going to say don't save, and it will take me back to my resources page. I hope that you have learned more about ClassFlow than you knew before. I hope you have learned how to access the Marketplace feature and how to use the 8 different polling options. Stay tuned to my YouTube channel for more updates and information about creating and delivering ClassFlow lessons. Again, this is Kyla Jita from Spartanburg School District 3.